International humanitarian law and the Islamic laws of war are not in any way contradictory in a fundamental sense. They both begin with the two basic principles that are the cornerstone of each system. One is discrimination in fighting. One must discriminate between those who are fighting and those who are not fighting. The other principle is proportionality. That is, one uses only the necessary amount of force to achieve one's military objectives. A military objective is sometimes it's a sliding scale. One can define military objectives in many different ways, but the sliding scale ends with the principle of discrimination. So if that scale leads to the random or the indiscriminate or the excessive killing of civilians, then that scale is obviously faulty. So because discrimination and proportionality are key to both IHL and Islamic law, the two systems of law are fundamentally compatible. And in fact, many Muslim theorists argue that the basis for IHL was the very developed and very detailed Islamic laws of warfare that date back to the 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries, long before these principles were fully developed in Europe.
المشكلة التي ربما يعاني منها بعض الباحثين في هذه المجالات أن القانون الدولي الإنساني عبارة عن قانون مفصل بمواده والتي تجتمع في اتفاقيات جنيف الأربعة لعام 1949 والبروتوكولان الملحقان في عام 1977. فالقضايا المتعلقة بالقانون الدولي الإنساني سواء كان بالجرحى أو في الغرقى أو الأسرى أو المدنيين المبينة هناك بين بالتفصيل. فالذي يأتي يريد أن يجد هذه النقاط مفصلة في الشريعة الإسلامية لا يجدها هكذا، فيبدأ يقول هل هناك تعارض أو ليس هناك تعارض. الشريعة الإسلامية في طريقتها في عرض هذه الموضوعات التي تتغير من زمان إلى زمان وهي التي نسميها بالمعاملات تضع قواعد عامة وطرقا للاجتهاد فيها تحيلها إلى العلماء. فلذلك هذه النقاط المفصلة لو فتش العلماء المتبحرون في الدين لوجدوها كلها مضمونة في القواعد العامة التي جاء في الإسلام.
What is very important to know that Sharia Islamiyya or the Islamic Sharia or the Islamic law is emphasizing role of protection to certain things that are related to human beings. So what I'm noticing that international humanitarian law is emphasizing role of protection for human lives, for their properties, for their children, and etc. So this is the main similarity that is present. And also what is important to note is that there is an intention in Islamic law to protect these things. And I believe that international humanitarian law goes to that aim, basically. And it is very important to notice that in Sharia or in Islamic law, the motive is your understanding or awareness that Almighty God created all people. And I believe that similarity comes with when you talk about international humanitarian law, that all people are basically equal in that fact. So these are the two similarities that are basically very crucial in understanding how can Islamic perception of life help in applying certain principles that are adopted by contemporary world and modern states today.
القانون الدولي الإنساني أهدافه أو هدفه هو حماية الإنسان بصرف النظر عن لونه أو جنسه، خاصة في أوقات الحرب. يحفظ إذا من خاصة الناس الضعفاء في هذا الحرب. والإسلام جاء أساسا لتكريم الإنسان. الله يقول لقد كرمنا بني آدم وحملناه في البر والبحر. ما قال كرمنا المسلمين أو كرمنا النصارى، قال كرمنا بني آدم، أي الإنسان بصرف نظر عن أي صفة، ولكن كونه إنسانا مكرم حيا وميتا. فهذا تشابه في الأهداف. فالقانون الدولي الإنساني والشريعة الإسلامية يهدفان إلى حماية الإنسان وتكريمه. فهذا أكبر نقطة للتشابه.
The main similarities between international humanitarian law and Islamic law is the concern for the common good of humanity, to try and reduce the negative impact of conflict. Both laws appreciate or understand that human beings can be violent and that this is not desirable, and that they should find whatever means they can to try and mitigate, to reduce the impact. And so many laws involved when it comes to the kind of weapons, when it comes to the targets of warfare, and who you can fight and not fight. They're really all concerned about better preservation of human life, better respect for property, better respect for human dignity, better respect for the family values and making sure family members stay together, better respect for individual differences in culture and religious respect. And so when we look at it from that frame, we find both Islamic and international humanitarian law are interested in realizing what Muslims will call the maqasid of Sharia, of greater justice, while there's the appreciation that war has its objectives and there's military necessity, but to try and ensure that is not at the expense of our humanity, that we are not animals, and that there's a dignity that all human beings should be afforded. And so the importance is to have holistic but also realistic means of mitigating those problems in various conflicts, which calls for the need sometimes for flexibility, principles, clear objectives that can be applicable in various contexts, whether it is through moral persuasion or the long arm of the law, legal sanctions.